Welcome to the Businessmen and Women of Color podcast. I am your host, Ann Alston, and it is once again my pleasure to bring quality programs to all of you. I am excited, yes, again, with another amazing professional fellow podcaster, someone who's in ministry and is doing phenomenal things out there with his radio platform. So I am very excited to be speaking to him. And he is one of my corporate sponsors for the BMWOC podcast in 2018. And if you are not on this podcast, you are missing out, because this year is amazing with so many people just joining the movement to support small businesses and authors. So if you missed it this year, make sure you jump on the bandwagon to get on the 2018 BMWOC podcast. Just in case you didn't know, the purpose of our podcast is to share industry information and to encourage you, the working professionals and enthusiasts, to look at the different changes that's going on in the workforce today and figure out where you need to be in your career. There is tons and tons and tons of information going back from 2017, 2016, and 2018. So take advantage of this opportunity, because you cannot get this anywhere else but the BMWOC podcast. Before we get started, we would like to take a moment to thank our corporate partners and sponsors, which are Cat Sereno LLC, Cheryl Wood Empowers, Concern and Learning, Evangelism Radio, Genesis Preferred Solutions, J Coach International, Nels Tax Help, My Financial Home, Power, STCI, and the Student Teacher, along with our other business affiliate sponsors, and everyone who is supporting this event. So today, as promised, we have another podcast participant on here who is also a fellow podcaster. His name is Robert Thibodeau, and he is the founder of Evangelism Radio and the Kingdom Cross podcast radio platform that he has. Robert has more than 30 years of leadership training experience. His military background consists of serving in the U.S. Army as an enlisted soldier, drill instructor, and then receiving a commission as a U.S. Cavalry officer, where he served in the combat line unit as well as staff positions. And after he served in the military, he formed his private business and operated it for more than 7 years, calling to the service again later on in his life as a police officer, and then retiring from the law enforcement just to come back to the leadership field and in his ministry, where he was ordained a minister in 2001. So he has a lot of stuff. I want people to continue reading his bio. And Robert, how you doing? You're on the
I'm
podcast.
Blessed. Amen. It's good to talk to you again. This is a unique pleasure. I just appreciate you having me on.
No problem. And thank you again for being a corporate sponsor to support the small businesses and joining the movement. And you know what? Let's just start from the beginning, because this is my trademark, to just introduce yourself and where you're from and how did you get into, one, the military, and two, how did you land into, I think we'll talk about that a little. Let's talk about the military, because you got a lot going on right there. So let's talk about that first.
Well, if I was to sit down and just go through my whole life, it would sound like, the Walter Mitty story, where, because I've done it all. I mean,
I like that movie, The Walter Mitty Show.
Yeah, I was right out of high school. I joined the Army. Immediately, I recognized that they were, focused on leadership, obviously. And I started picking up on, identifying who the strong leaders were and started more or less following their lead. And next thing, I was promoted ahead of my peers, and I was selected to represent our unit. It was called the NCO of the Quarter Board, and I did well. And one of the senior NCOs pulled me aside. He goes, "I'm going to help you get ready for what's coming." And so we started working one-on-one. He's teaching me how to, appear before these boards and how to, poise and maintain eye contact, just everything that a leader needs, and as well as presenters. And that's where it started. And I ended up taking second place for the 8th U.S. Army, that's all of Korea, at the NCO of the Year competition. And I only lost by 2 points. And there's 3 board members you're doing your presentation in front of. And my slide projector had a misfeed. And I just, basically, I didn't kick it, but I just tapped it and it reset. Well, they all deducted 1 point. and I lost by 2. So I was actually ahead by 1 point. I would have
Oh,
won.
wow.
But because of that, I was selected to be in drill sergeant status. And that's where you learn how to do presentations and teaching and instructing, as well as more leadership. And, that was just so enjoyable because you're taking raw recruits who know absolutely nothing. They're completely terrified of, every noise in the night and everything else, which is part of the training. But over the course of about 8 weeks, then you see them as they leave to go to their training, and, they are 100% completely different. And they're working, instead of being 80 individuals, they're all working together as a unit. And it was so pleasurable. I really enjoyed that time. Well, because of that experience, I applied for and received a commission. I went to officer candidate school after that and ended up in a combat line unit with the United States Cavalry, HUA. And I got to lead people and train them and take care of them. And because of my background as enlisted, I had the respect almost immediately of all the enlisted people, including the senior NCOs. And I had the responsibility of a commissioned officer. So I was in the best of both worlds. Unfortunately, that was just before the Gulf War. And those years leading up to it, they decided they were going to cut back how many officers they had in the military. And that's where I ended up cut, because I only had a 2-year degree at the time. Instead, I was competing against, academy graduates and ROTC graduates. And so my name was one of the first. So it didn't matter, the excellent job I was doing. They just were looking at budget cuts. Well, I got out, and after a little bit of prayer, and actually a whole lot of prayer, soul searching.
Yeah. I mean, it just sounds like you're just making just a very smooth transition, and every opportunity that you had led to a bigger opportunity, which is
Yep.
amazing.
Yeah, it wasn't really a smooth transition. I mean, it was a major life change. But I ended up going into the insurance business, just trying to make a living, and found out that my skills that I had picked up in the military transitioned right into salesmanship, because maintaining eye contact, giving presentations, and communicating, being picking up on audience cues and things like that. And I ended up being within probably 6-8 months, I'm one of the top salesmen for the insurance company I was with. And within 2 years, I had my own office. I had ended up with something like 12 agents and 3 or 4 full-time employees in the office, taking care of things. And within another year, maybe 18 months, our office was the number 2 producer for the insurance company we were with nationwide. Things were going well. About that time, the Gulf War started. My market was the military, and it's kind of hard to sell when they all pack up and move 6,000 miles away. So that market evaporated, and I decided, it's time to go ahead and realize my next childhood dream, which was becoming a police officer. And that's where that career came in. And the same leadership skills that I had learned and practiced for almost 20 years now transitioned right into the police department. And I was picked up on right away. Within 2 years, they had decided that I was one of their up and coming leaders, and they sent me to Johns Hopkins University to get my master's degree, and they paid for it. So that was really nice.
Wow.
But,
Oh my God. That sounds so awesome, Robert.
yeah.
Okay, so let's just break this down just for
All
those
right.
folks who are one, as far as the military. If you had to pick out one of the best times that you had in the military, what would that be? And secondly, what would be the criteria to even obtain that? Because we have so many different positions in the military. And what I liked what you said was that the leadership skills, the presentation and the speaking and all that was just constant across all of the jobs and the industries that you were in.
Correct.
But kind of focusing on that one particular moment or that one time, I know you mentioned one of them that was sort of like the best time that you were able to utilize those 4 skills to just make it happen for yourself.
That would have been my drill instructor days.
The
That
drill instructor
was,
days.
yeah,
Okay.
about 3.5 years I was on drill sergeant status. And, like I say, you're taking raw material and shaping it the way you want. obviously it's not the way you want, it's the way the Army wants, but you are responsible for making sure it happens. I'll put it like that. And you are judged, you're evaluated upon how well your platoon does. And there's, evaluations throughout the entire 8-week course. And if you are not producing the end result that the military is looking for, then you are no longer going to be on drill sergeant instructor status. But
Wow.
to me, that was my best time.
I can't even imagine
13
you
years.
yelling at people right now. I can't
Oh
even
yeah, I
imagine.
can do whatever I need to do now.
Oh, go give us a sample. Go ahead. I want to hear it. I want to hear
Get
it.
out, get up, get down, get up, get down, get up. What are you too slow for?
Oh wow, you got me hyped up. Okay, so that was okay. So basically, just having that ultimate discipline, like you said,
Yeah.
that transcended in what you learned in the military to all these new recruits that are coming
Yeah.
in, and you're saying in the nutshell that you had to instill that same ideology to them and making sure that they have the same type of character, and then you just carried that on to the police force, which pretty much has a military style type of format, and so you just kind of went right over there, and they just saw it immediately, right?
Correct. Yeah, that's correct. Matter of fact, my first day in the police academy, which is just like basic training all over again for about 3 weeks. And it's funny because I went through basic when I first joined. As drill instructor, you go through basic training 3 more times. You do it to prove that you can do it. Then you do it learning how to do it. And then you do it again instructing and showing them you know how to instruct us. So there's 3 times there, 1 time at OCS. So now I'm, and not even counting at the NCO academies and stuff. And now I'm at the police academy. And to me, this is like, the 6th or 7th time I've done this. So, nothing is phasing me. Everybody else is panicking and all that. The first day 1, they're in there yelling at you like I was just doing a minute ago. And I'm doing whatever they say. When I'm back up position of attention, I just lock in on a point on the wall and let them yell. I'm not even breaking my eye contact with that point on the wall. They're in my face. I'm not even looking at them. And then one of the senior guys came and says, "You're prior military, aren't you?" I go, "Sir, yes, sir." He goes, "You're not going to have any problem here at all." He goes, "I can already tell." And he's right. I mean, that's what I mean. From day 1, they could identify what was there.
Okay. And so how long were you in the police force?
About 8 years. What happened? I was working one night. I was a supervisor, patrol supervisor, and there was a major accident out on the highway, middle of a pretty good rainstorm, and I was out there helping control the scene while they're doing the investigation and stuff. And I ended up being injured in the accident scene. And 2 surgeries over 2 years where I fought to stay on duty, and the 3rd surgery was coming up, and they decided, we're just going to let you retire and go on with your life. And so while I'm sitting here at the computer recovering from one of the leg surgery, not able to walk around or do anything, I was praying and I said, "Lord, what's next?" And as clear as if he was sitting right next to me, I just heard the Lord say, "I want you to begin a weekly online 30-minute radio program." Now, I had to have help checking email. Okay. This was a major faith step of the Lord. Okay.
I mean, is it because you saw that people were doing podcasts and it just kind of just came to your mind that this would be something very interesting for you to try?
Yeah, and at the time I didn't know they were called podcasts.
Okay.
I called it my radio program. That's because that's all I could relate to. But I seen that there was a lot of them going on, and really it was the only thing I could do. And the Lord was very clear; He was letting me retire so I could go full time in the ministry and not have to worry about income, which a lot of pastors don't have that privilege. So that's how evangelism radio started. And it wasn't a few months, maybe 6 months to a year after that he said, "Okay, now you got the background, start a radio station and help other pastors to get the word out." So that's where we started Evangelism Radio, which now has 52 different ministries broadcasting every week on it.
Really?
And,
wow.
yeah. And so we were rated number one in the world, probably about 80% of the time in our
Mm-hmm.
niche, our genre.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, we were about 15 months in, we ended up being rated number one for the first time and had a big, hoo-ah moment. Now it's like, when we're not rated number one, we're like, what happened?
Yeah, but you still, I mean, number one or not, just having a platform, because there's so many different podcasts out there, but to
Yeah,
actually have a platform for other ministries to
yeah,
be able to broadcast, that is something special, near and dear to my heart, like the podcast, right, that I'm doing. You go and get all these business people, and you talk about, what's going on in the business world, and you're sort of doing the parallel. This is the first time I've heard that part about you're
yeah,
actually having other ministries just coming out here and just telling and sharing what they do. So you just kind of got your podcast information. Okay, let's
yep.
talk about the story of how you even attempted to do the podcast, because this is going to be interesting for those who are aspiring to do a podcast and not sure what to do. So go ahead and share your experience on how you actually did your first podcast.
Okay, the first one, like I said, I knew absolutely nothing about what was going to take place. And I did some searching and I found a place. It's called, I'll go ahead and mention their name. I mean, they helped me get started. It's called talkshoe.com. And it's similar to, it came out about the same time as Blog Talk Radio, but they never took off like Blog Talk Radio did. And that's where it started. It was a dial-in, program, and I just started it by faith. We started. I just talked till I got done talking. Sometimes it was 17 minutes. Sometimes it was 35 minutes. Sometimes 45 minutes. Typically around 28, 29. Within just a few weeks, because I would do it every night, every week at the same time. It was like 7 p.m. Wednesday night or something like that. And within just a few weeks, I started having 30, 40 people logging on at the same time I'm doing my broadcast. And that became my little church.
Okay. Now, did
And
you do some marketing during that time? Did you market
just
it?
on Facebook.
Just
Just
on
on
Facebook,
Facebook.
and they just
Yep.
happen to kind of, clock in and say, "Oh, he's
Yep.
doing his thing." And
Right.
did you get any other people outside of Facebook that maybe come to, what is it,
Yeah.
talkshoe.com, and
Yeah.
and
TalkShoe, just like on Blog Talk Radio, where you can just log in and see who's live at that moment. It was the same way with TalkShoe. They would show you who's going live at that moment. And I would say probably 80% of the people that came in were from that platform. And some of them I still have relationships with to this day. Matter of fact, Sharita Berry was one of the people following me on it, and she has been a broadcaster on Evangelism Radio for 7 years now. So
wow,
she's one of those that came on the platform when I first started, and she's been with me ever since.
wow. And so history has taken over, and now you are on your blog just doing your thing with your evangelism radio.
Yep.
And then the other thing came up, which is the Kingdom Cross. How did
Kingdom
that come?
Crossroads
Yeah,
podcast.
how did
Yeah.
that come about? Is that like that's a piece of what you were doing before, correct?
Mhm. Yep. Well, with Evangelism Radio, at the time we had about 28 broadcasters. So we've almost doubled since in the 2 years since I started the Kingdom Crossroads podcast. But how that started, I wanted to have a more personable, intimate conversation, kind of like what we're doing right now, with the broadcasters and the pastors and the ministries that were on Evangelism Radio, where I could just have this conversation and put it on the radio as its own program, where the listeners would be able to hear the background and the story of the person, holding the minister, pastor, whatever, without just being preached at all the time. So it's just, their background story. Well, I started getting requests from authors and musicians and, people like that, Sunday school teachers, whatever, that, hey, can I be interviewed? I want to, can you put me on your podcast? So we started a second podcast called Everything Church Related to handle those type of interviews. And the interviews were so good. I mean, there was some really
So
awesome,
good.
awesome
You sound
things,
like me when I'm talking to people like you. I'm like, oh my God, this is so good. I mean,
Exactly. So I said, I want to share this with our radio audience. So I started
yes,
putting them
yes.
over on, just like when I did your interview. It
Yes,
was
you
called a
did.
dual
Oh
broadcast,
my God,
and
that
so it was
thing
on
was
both
phenomenal.
podcasts.
You're a great
Yeah.
interviewer. You know that, right?
Oh,
So
thank you.
he
Again, that
interviewed me,
comes back from
guys.
those skills.
That's right.
So
And
yeah,
I was so happy to hear the playback because everything was just very, very fluent. I'm gonna tell you right now, if you haven't been interviewed by Robert Thibodeau, you're gonna have to get interviewed by this guy. He is really, really good.
amen.
He has the whole setup. When he's on Skype, he looks like he's on top-notch radio. He has his earphones, he has a huge professional mic, he has all that stuff to make you feel that you are really,
Thank you.
on a really good platform. And I say that sincerely because a
Amen.
lot of us don't do that. There's a lot of us, like me and some other folks that are doing podcasts that don't have equipment like that. And it is very important to have really good equipment if you're going to do a podcast. And sometimes people can't afford, Blog Talk
Right.
Radio or
Hmm.
Speaker or one of these other
Hmm.
platforms. So, I just wanted to kind of encourage people to don't let
Thank
that
you.
stop them from doing
That's
it.
right.
You're doing it. You're doing it. I'm just telling you, I'm amazed
Well,
and
it's
I'm
been a
really impressed.
7-year process to get to this point, though. So, I mean,
Yeah.
when I started, it was on, like I said, talk shoe radio with my cell phone. That's how it started.
With your
And
cell phone?
yep, just call in, and I was the host, so I had a special password. I just talked on my cell phone, and
Wow.
that's how it started. But the thing is, through the podcast, the Kingdom Crossroads podcast, I was talking about everything church related and how those interviews were so good. I started doing the dual broadcast, and now I've kind of merged those podcasts together. One, it saves me double work, but I'm just consolidating them because everybody has a story to share. And everybody has something that they're doing. And for those that are not in ministry, I started the business side of communicating to the business leaders, the business owners. That I'm trying to help them through leadership training. What I've learned over the past 35 years of doing that, it's not so much ministry aspected. It's related to if you own a print shop or whatever, and you got a team, I want to help you build that team. Now, yes, we focus on churches, pastors, ministries, things like that. But the way we've designed this, I can also cross platform to the civilian sector. And it's the leadership training, the team building aspect of how to have that cohesive team, just like the military does. And it's all focused on from the top down. Everyone, all the business owners, like, if I had an employee that could do this, well, if you want your employee to do it, why don't you do it first and then show them how it's done? I mean, that's basically how it starts off.
Wow. Okay. So I want to turn the interview now to your ministry background. So
Okay.
somehow or another, while you were doing this podcast, you decided to become an ordained minister at some point. What was your reason behind that, if you can share?
Well, actually, I was called into ministry back in 1993 and went to Bible school in 1998 and 99. And then we moved to Maryland in 2001, and I started a church. Realized that was not my calling. This was in between the insurance age and the police department while I was waiting for the police department thing to kick in. And, when I was accepted to the academy, I merged our church, which had grown from just my family at 8 to about 35 people within almost 2 years, about 20 months. But we merged because, there's no way I could, tell the police department, "Oh, I can't work Sundays." That would not go over well. Uh, but I merged with a friend of ours with a neighboring church, and matter of fact, he is still on my board of directors to this day. And so that took care of the ministry aspect. And within 2 years, I was selected to be the chaplain for our police department's fraternal order of police. I'd held that position for 4 years, so I was still in ministry even though I was with the police department. So that kind of helped out. And like I said, when you're on disability and you're recovering from surgery, I've had, Lord, I don't want to tell myself, but it's somewhere 17, 18 different medical procedures, and due to that one accident that happened. So it was May 12th, 2007. So this is what, 11 years now, and I've had 17 medical procedures done, and still on disability. But
Wow.
it was because of that I asked the Lord, what do you want me to do? Matter of fact, in between, because I was fighting so hard to stay on active duty with the police department, as the next surgery is coming around, they're talking about, we might be retiring you. I just went to the Lord in prayer and said, Lord, what is it you want me to do? Do you want me to continue fighting with this, or do you want me to just let it go and see what happens? And he just gave me the peace. He said, I'm in charge. Just let me handle it. So I did. I stopped fighting it. I said, whatever happens, happens. And the normal processing time is about 18 months from the time they say, we're going to make you retire, start your paperwork, till the decision is made and you start drawing the checks, about 18 months. I received my formal letter about mid-March of 2011, and they told me to start getting your packet ready. And I had, because of all the medical procedures, it took me 6 weeks to get it together. And my wife and I laid hands on it and prayed on April 2nd, the evening. April 3rd, I turned it in. And the prayer was, Lord, if this is you, I don't want to be in limbo for 18 months. I want you to come through strong. Let me know that this is what you want me to do. Because I was already on the podcast and had decided that, that would be the aspect I go, the internet ministry. And instead of 18 months, it took 23 days. On April 25th, I received a letter back, said, you're retired. Congratulations. And I said, okay, Lord, I mean, that's a pretty clear sign right there.
Wow. Amazing. It is
So
definitely amazing.
we've been on internet ministry now ever since.
Ever since, you know what? Sometimes you just have to follow your calling. And a lot of times we do fight against the grain. We know it's
Yeah,
right there. We get the signs. We even have things that actually stop us in our tracks, but we keep
exactly.
ignoring it and we don't follow it. And you're definitely, like all of us, has shown that if you ignore it, it's going to keep coming back if it's meant to happen.
Oh
Eventually, it's
yeah,
going to
yeah,
happen.
that's
So
right.
I am
Amen.
so glad that you chose not to fight it anymore and that you're doing your thing and helping so many people.
Oh,
Um,
amen.
so, so what activities are you into right now with all that you're going on? Are you at any speaking engagements? Are you doing any kind of events or anything like that you want people to know about?
We, I've been invited to speak in churches and ministry camps and things like that. I'm in the process right now. Like I said, we've made this new transition to team building and leadership training for businesses, small to medium sized businesses, and so that is now taking shape. Matter of fact, last week, it may have been Monday of this week, is right in that area. Actually hit publish for the team building book that we have out. And it should be popping up on Amazon. It's called Team Training: How to Increase Profitability While Decreasing Employee Friction and Turnover. And is, like I said, it's designed for small to medium sized businesses uh,
Okay.
that will help them out. So that's the aspect where I'm starting to put the word out that I'm available to come speak at conferences and things like that to help people develop their business. And they could be just starting out, and you want to start out right. They could be businesses that are having problems, and I'm not coming in to diagnose the problems. I'm coming in to give them the skills where they can diagnose the problems and fix the problems, all at the same time of building their team around them. You have to have that core group. The military's big concept on leadership is, if you go into battle and the lieutenant gets killed, well, who takes charge? Well, the platoon sergeant would take charge. Well, who's taking his spot? The senior section chief. Well, who's taking his spot? The senior squad leader. Well, who's taking his spot? The most senior enlisted guy there. So there is this set method of leadership, and progression, and the mission continues. So if the commander gets taken out, they don't say, stop, stop, stop. The captain's dead. We got to sit down and let's figure out what's going to happen next. No, they don't do that. The next person in line just takes charge. What's happening with many, many small businesses today is the business owner can't leave. I mean, that person has to be there, because what if something happens? I mean, we're putting together this, $1 million package that we're promoting to this company. And, I need everybody to do exactly what they're supposed to do to make it happen, but I can't leave because I have to have my hand in everything. Well, what happens if the week that you are ready to present this big presentation, what happens if one of your key department heads has a heart attack and dies, or gets in a car accident and can't come to work for 6 months? What's going to happen to your presentation at that point in time?
Right, exactly.
Typically, the business owner jumps in and just starts taking charge of everything. But that's not the best way of handling it. If you start training now and have this as your business philosophy, that you train your new employee, once you're hiring them to answer the phones, that's it. That's their job. You're a receptionist. Once they get down that aspect of their job and they are proficient at what they're hired for, start training them for being the file clerk, and they can handle both. And it's train the file clerk to help the office supervisor. What does it need me to do? And you start helping that person. And during this training, you're teaching them, okay, this is the way the boss likes it. You got to do it this way. And so you're training them already to start thinking like their boss. So if their boss goes on vacation, hey, why don't you just take over this department for 2 weeks? Or when you get that aspect down, now you start teaching them, okay, now this is the way the owner likes it done. When we have this situation going on, the owner wants it done like this. That might be 2 levels above them, but they're starting to get a vision for the way the business is supposed to operate. So when you implement training in that way, the owner could go on vacation all the way around the other side of the world and have an emergency take place back home, and they have people already trained to think like their boss's boss, and they make the decisions based upon that training, and the business just keeps functioning. They might not even find out there was an emergency till they get back home. But today I've seen it and experienced it, where you go on vacation and you're calling the office 2-3 times. Hey, how's it going? What's going on with this?
You know what? Bosses
you're not on vacation.
No, bosses are never on vacation, and they will do that. But you know what you described really is a form of cross training that one is very different from what I'm used to hearing about people being cross trained. But one other thing I would like to add to your list is that not only do you need to think like your boss, but you also need to still be proactive and pick up where you see there's gaps. So like when you're training them in that aspect that you talked about, a lot of times we go, okay, we've been trained, and we will wait for someone to tell us when it's our turn. But we have to also be mindful that, if they see something coming up, to stay in your lane, but also be proactive and say, hey, let me tap you on the shoulder because I see something going on. Do you want me to handle it, or do you want the next person to handle it? And that would make a good team if people would just, watch after each other. So yeah, well done on that. And make sure that you give me the link so I can put that on your page so people can pick up your book. And are you having any other activities going on that you want to tell people about?
Not at this time. Like I said, we've been focused on getting the book out. And that's been a major project for about 4 or 5 months now. And like I said, we just hit publish, so we're working now on the Kindle aspect and all that. They'll be handling the next couple weeks. But after that, it's serious promotion time, and I want to get out and I want to get out and in front of groups. And I've had some that I am spotting right now to send out applications to, and get those speaking engagements, training events in order to accomplish that. That's my focus this year.
Awesome. And I'm pretty sure it's going to happen because, Rob, you are fantastic with your podcast platform. And, I am just really amazed of how you've been able to just take the skills that you've learned over the years, whether military or not, and you just stay true to yourself. And now you're doing such a wonderful thing for the community, for the ministry, and now for business owners. So people who you're listening to this guy right now, he is your next leadership trainer. Okay.
Amen.
He
Amen.
already, you know what I'm saying? So it's not like, he doesn't know. He has been out there listening to everybody. He is your future life coach. So make sure that you connect with Robert Thibodeau to have him come out and to your facility, to your church, to your corporate organization. He's going to bring his book. He's going to talk about how he can implement this training thought process in your environment. And that is really important if you want to be productive and keep the bottom line very lucrative with your generation of money, because when you have productive staff, you will be more productive in your
Amen.
business. And
That's
that
right.
is definitely a fact for most businesses. So
Mhm.
make sure that you check out his information, reach out to him. And also don't forget to check out all the other podcasts that's going on this season. Connect with them. That's what the BMWOC community is for. And just so everybody know that our community extends, we are not just a minority community. We are all people of color strengthening together as small
Amen.
businesses to support each other. And that is just really, really important. And so, Robert, I want to thank you for supporting the cause
Well, thank
again
you.
and being a business sponsor, and just really happy that you're here. So thank you.
Yeah, amen. Yeah, man. I'm looking forward to meeting you down in August, and
Oh yeah, the
we're
Veterans
coming down. Yep. We
That's
are
right.
coming down.
That's right. And if you want to meet him in person, he will be having a table at the Veterans Biz Up Conference in August. So make sure you show up. Make
Amen.
sure you show up. All right. So we're going to let you go for the day, and thank you again.
I appreciate it.